Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Want to Do What? Today we've got Brian Sanya Mondoh on, and he's a blockchain lawyer. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Daniel. Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
We're good, thank you. How are you?
All good. I'm in Trinidad and Tobago. It's a bit hot today.
Oh, very jealous. We're in very, very grey England.
Yeah, it's raining.
I actually miss the England weather because I prefer to be layered up than be sweaty and, you know.
Brian, shall we jump straight in? Because I'm really interested to find out about what you do.
Right. Okay. So I'm a qualified barrister in England and Wales, first of all. And I am a qualified attorney at law in Trinidad and Tobago. So I relocated from England to Trinidad and qualified to practice within the Commonwealth Caribbean by undertaking a sort of conversion course. Mm-hmm. So now I'm a practitioner in this region, basically.
Okay. And so you're a blockchain lawyer, right? So you specialize in the blockchain.
Right. So yes, but no. So I have to take a split approach to this. So my practice is basically commercial law and intellectual property law. Okay. Yeah. But I also do lots of international trade and government procurement stuff. Now with blockchain, my interest lies in using blockchain in supply chain systems. Okay. So that's where the blockchain aspect comes in. So the question that I focus on, because I'm also a PhD candidate, the question I focus on is this: how can we ethically adopt blockchain in markets, in institutions, in anything that can be enhanced using blockchain? So basically, I take an ethical and regulatory approach to blockchain. Wow. And crypto assets.
Wow, really interesting.
So yes. How did you get onto the subject of blockchain? Obviously, it's not something that's bandied about that much. Obviously, it's becoming more and more. Crypto is becoming more and more popular. People know more about it. But even within the world of law, it's obviously a very new thing and not much has been involved. What is it that got you involved in blockchain and you started to look at it?
Okay, so after finishing bar school in Nottingham in around 2017, I went back to my home country, Kenya, and I was running a company. It was a startup, and I was partnering with an Australian company that provides event technology. So we were trying to reduce fraud at the point of sale using NFC and RFID technology. But now, things like AI were becoming more popular. And at this point, the UK wanted to be the leader in AI technology. And it released some command papers and let's just say white papers to just put them collectively. So it was releasing white papers talking about AI technology. But then, moving on, Ethereum launched. And there was the aspect of smart contracts. So it developed blockchain from what it initially was at conception with Bitcoin to become this thing that you can build applications on and have smart contracts, which is basically self-executing codes. It's nothing to do with contracts and nothing to do with smartness, because they are also subject to they have errors in code, and there's bugs in them as well. So you get hackers bypassing the systems and things and so forth, you know. Mm-hmm. So I started researching like how you could pair AI technology with blockchain technology so that you have a sort of foolproof system using the smart contracts. So you have things called oracles, and they call them IoT devices. Yes. So you have IoT devices getting information, and you have oracles getting information. and it's the artificial intelligence that gets this information for you through deep learning and whatever you want to call it. And then the blockchain is basically a ledger. Think of an accounts ledger.
Mm-hmm.
The blockchain writes down information. So before Bitcoin and them all, there was blockchain before, and there was distributed ledger technologies before, but it only became popular with the advent of Bitcoin. And also, that was around 2008 when Bitcoin kicked off, but it still didn't take off properly until, let's say, around in 2012, and then when Ethereum came around. But people still don't know what's really going on. If you ask someone what blockchain is, they'll tell you it's Bitcoin. But there's so much, there's so much to this technology than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually the native currency of the Bitcoin protocol. So under every blockchain protocol, you could have a native currency. So we could have the Brian coin or whatever. You know, everybody nowadays has a coin. So it's important to understand the technology and where it's going. So I take a very ethical and pragmatic look at blockchain because I need to understand how it can coexist in society and how it can be safe. Because if you look at blockchain, it has no boundaries. It's a pervasive technology, and it goes across multiple borders, because this is what was envisioned by the creators of Bitcoin.
It's such an interesting sort of concept to apply this technology that wants to open up the world and allow people to trade with trust directly with each other, opposed to having a broker in the middle. And now it must be incredibly difficult to legislate and start building the law around that, because it's not been done before, right?
Yeah, it really hasn't been done before. And okay, you have some places that are trying to implement blockchain legislation. I think the best example will be the state of Wyoming in the USA. They're the most forward-thinking in terms of blockchain and things called decentralized autonomous organizations. So let me go back a bit, because if we skip a step, we'll skip everything, all right? We'll miss out on crucial bits. So just please take a note of smart contracts and decentralized autonomous organizations, and just ask me that question before I forget. So in 2008, you have this financial crisis. You remember when the markets crashed?
Yeah.
So the people, it's like a rebellious movement. It was called the cypherpunk movement. So it sounds like a rock band or something like that. These people decided, not these people actually, it was around this sort of genre of people, but the man who created the technology is called Satoshi Nakamoto, all right?
Yeah.
So he decided, because he wants to build a technology that is peer-to-peer without a central intermediary, okay?
Yep.
Where two people who don't know each other could transact in such a way that it cuts out the middleman, which means it's faster, there's less cost, there's less KYC and such. But Bitcoin, so I'll mention Bitcoin a lot because it's not Bitcoin the currency, but the Bitcoin protocol.
Yeah.
So the Bitcoin protocol is built on something. It's pseudonymous. All right. So as it's kind of anonymous, but there are some transactions that can still be seen. Okay. So the transactional data can still be seen. So you can still track some people if they're doing you can track bad actors essentially.
Got you.
But then you have some fully decentralized systems, and this is what regulators think cryptocurrency is about. So they think everything under crypto can be used for criminal, like a conduit in criminal stuff, you know, because those things like Silk Road, where you have illegal trade going on in the black markets. So that's what blockchain and crypto has built notoriety, you know,
yes,
on such on such platforms. So here we come. We are trying to regulate something. Regulators don't even understand the protocols. They don't know the functioning of this technology. So how do you start regulating something that you don't understand? You have to, first of all, understand the technology, then apply your lawyer hat and apply your IT hat and see, okay, cool. So this is how this thing works.
Yeah.
So you have the Financial Action Task Force coming in, and they're saying, you know, things like crypto are used for financial crimes or money laundering crimes, whatever. So we have to regulate. We have to regulate. So this is a really machine gun type of regulation approach that they're taking, and not considering how this thing really works. So for me, I personally use modalities created by this man called Lawrence Lessig. He's a world-renowned lawyer, and he's written lots of stuff about regulation of things in the cyberspace. So you cannot take a one-sided approach when it comes to regulation. You have to look at the law first of all. How does so this thing is called the pathetic dot theory, all right?
Okay.
Right. And it has 4 modalities in it. So there's the law, there's social norms, there's the market, and there's architecture. So you find many people in the legal realms and the social realms, they're just like, this thing is bad, we have to hammer it down. Like in the UK, you have the FCA. They say they can't really regulate crypto because they quite don't understand it. But if it's not digital money, if it's not e-money, then it's not subject to regulation, you know? So they really don't know how to handle themselves with such things. And then they did a report was it this year, sometime in June, July? And they said in England, in the UK, you have 2.3 million users of crypto.
Yep.
So it means it's popular, right?
Yes.
But most people using it are using it out of fear of missing out.
Yes.
But then they go to say they're going to invest a lot of money. I'm not sure what the sum was. It was a hefty sum of money. They said they're going to invest a lot of money to advertise against the use of crypto. So it's sort of a fear-mongering approach to regulation, whereby you should be giving guys like, okay, so this is crypto, it can do this, it can do this, and we are going to work with the exchanges, with the crypto platforms to find ways that if someone loses their wallet or whatever, we could have this remedy for them. And you know, it works in such a way.
Yeah,
but
it must be hard as well.
Yeah.
In the UK, you obviously have the Bank of England and the government deciding how the Great British Pound is used. In Europe, you have the European governing body deciding how the euro can be used. Who's meant to be enforcing crypto across the whole world? Are we all meant to like come together, or does every country, are they going to have their own laws regarding different cryptos?
So that's the role of the Financial Action Task Force. So it was given this mandate that it's like, think of it like the UN, all right?
Yep.
So this is the UN for crypto regulation. So you have around I'm just going to give a rough figure, maybe 37 countries, because I don't have my notes with me in front of me right now. So you have like 37 countries that are compliant with FATF regulations. But then you see, it's just like the UN. So the UN can give out some regulations, but before it applies in your local jurisdiction, it has to go through your local parliament and or whatever to see how it applies within your jurisdiction. So you can't have this mother entity saying, okay, this is this. So it has to apply to everybody in the same fashion. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So you have to really understand what's happening. So like in the US, for example, you have different entities trying to regulate the same item. So you have the Securities Exchange Commission, you have the Commodities Futures Commission, and other people like the FBI and whatever who are involved in these sort of crimes, like trying to stop these crimes. But there's overlapping roles, there's gaps in regulation. Some states are saying this, some states are friendly states actually, like Wyoming, Miami, and them. And then you have some really hardcore states that are like, you know what, we don't want this. And then you have places like China that are saying this is completely forbidden. So there's no one fit all solution for this regulation thing. You just have to understand it properly and regulate yourself if you can. Like do your own research as the individual.
Yeah. So this sounds to me, so you very explained there about the issue around trying to build law into blockchain and cryptocurrency. It's a massive issue, right? So if you're a young lawyer or somebody that wants to go into law, what an exciting area of law to go into, because you have the chance to help write that law.
Yes. So you have the chance to develop it.
So for anyone listening to this and thinking, oh, I'd like to get into blockchain law, where would they even begin to do something like that?
Right. Daniel, this thing is big. So look at it this way. Let's start off with the GDPR, for instance, okay? Blockchain as blockchain already has friction with the GDPR because there's things like a right to erase data, there's the right to be forgotten, there's right to amendment. So the blockchain is an immutable ledger, which means when it goes out, it's gone out. So for you to come back to delete this record, how do you do it? Do you write data on top of it to rectify the previously written data? That's for one. Secondly, there's tax implications. All right, how do you tax transactions that happen using blockchain and smart contracts? Look at the NFTs. NFTs right now are buzzing all over the place, but they're full of, like, you have to look at it from a legal point of view in terms of taxation, copyright laws, intellectual property laws. So there's room for every type of lawyer to come into blockchain. Now, this is where the DAOs are coming in, the decentralized autonomous organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So lawyers who practice corporate governance, for example, there's a whole world out here dealing with blockchain governance. So how do you deal with this? Is blockchain, can you recognize blockchain as a legal entity? In England at the moment, you can't because it's not a human. But then in the state of Wyoming, in the USA, they have a whole statute that addresses that. And the decentralized autonomous organizations are given the same rights as any other company. You know what I mean? So it's exciting. It's neither here nor there. You just have to keep learning and learning and learning. And then with things like smart contracts. So when I mentioned Ethereum, so Ethereum brought about this revolution of something called decentralized finance.
Yeah.
So you have DeFi platforms that are fully operational on smart contracts. But then you have the smart contract being hacked. So in August, you had like the biggest DeFi hack in history. In like 650 million US dollars was hacked. Wow. But then it was returned because this hacker was trying to prove a point and say, you know what, I was just trying to show you that there was a bug in your code, you know. But then again, last week you have some protocol, after it underwent an upgrade, it paid out money like 90 million US dollars to its users.
Wow.
and the smart contract, once it's executed, that's done. So how do you come back to fix the smart contract when it goes haywire?
They had to ask for it back, didn't they? They had to ask their customers to send it back, didn't they? Nice and politely.
Exactly. And at some point he was a bit of a tool and was like, you know what, we'll tell the IRS or whoever is in charge of taxation in the US, we'll tell them, so you'll be on record. Then this raises more questions. If blockchain is decentralized and you're supposed to have your privacy and all such securities, how are they able to say that in public, that they will tell the IRS that you have this money?
Yes.
So how do you pinpoint that? Do you understand?
Yeah, it's very good point.
So is it decentralized? Is it not decentralized? Is it fully private? Is it not fully private? So like there's a lot going on, really, Daniel.
So what's your best number one piece of advice for a young lawyer or somebody wanting to go into law and trying to find their field and thinking, do you know what, blockchain's a bit of me? Where can they go and do some research about blockchain to learn about it? And is there anything they should do to help make themselves stand out for their, future employment within blockchain law?
Okay, so there's no academic. Okay, there are academic institutions coming up right now in terms of teaching blockchain. So you have places like MIT and whatever. But if those are out of your reach, join LinkedIn, because there's a strong community on LinkedIn, and these are the people who are like, they have operational knowledge of blockchain and smart contracts. So you interact with so many different people, because for me, I'm self-taught, so I've done some accredited courses, I've attended webinars like all over the world. But then again, the LinkedIn community is the best place to learn. And I think this is how we met as well, Daniel.
Yes, it LinkedIn, is. And funny you should mention that. Just before we are doing your podcast, we had Keir Finlow Bates on. And he mentioned that you guys had done a bit of work together and been chatting. And that's, do you know, we try and talk about this all the time on the podcast. LinkedIn and social media is such a valuable networking tool for anybody in any profession. And it just goes to show, we've had both you guys on in one evening and, you're working together. It's mad.
Right. And on LinkedIn, he's called the blockchain Gandalf, because and he's superb. You have to read Keir's book. It's called Move Over Blockchain Brokers. It's a must read, because he's one of the people, he's an inventor, he's an author, he's a thought leader, and his book simplifies blockchain. You can go to the IBM website, they have a book called Blockchain for Dummies. If you want to get some legal aspect of it, there's some books like, there's this very well-renowned lawyer, Dean Armstrong QC. He's one of the few lawyers who practice crypto and cyber law in London. So the community is so small, but yet again so big, because you have different countries all trying to achieve the same goal and understand where this thing is going. because blockchain started off in 2008 as Bitcoin. It's now 2021, but the understanding of this thing we've barely scratched the surface. We barely, and now we're moving to Web3 as well. You need to understand this. So from the original Bitcoin protocol, then you have the Ethereum protocol, and now you have Polkadot, which is bringing this new sort of Web3 sort of governance, and everything is going to be under what they call an internet of value. So like now you can see Twitter is paying people who have good content. Like this thing is crazy. You can't describe it in few words. Like we need like a whole day of a cup of tea and discuss this thing. It's crazy.
We'll go have some beers. But the thing that interests me is law is generally always behind innovation. So something happens, and then the law comes after it to regulate it, or with something like cryptocurrency and the way it's developing. There's cryptocurrencies being designed and invented almost daily. There's a new one coming about. How can the law keep up with such a rapidly changing and developing system like blockchain, particularly where law is very much across the T, dot the I's, and it kind of has to be a bit black and white?
Mm-hmm. Right. That's a marvelous question, first of all, because when you attend these forums, like on Twitter Spaces and whatever, you attend forums where you have maximalists and neutral people, and then the minimalists, yeah? And the maxis are always like, we don't care for the law. And the reason why Bitcoin was formed is because it was a sort of expressionist movement, we want our freedoms back. We want to have control of our own. So for maxis, they don't want to hear anything about the law. But then again, the maxis have to understand that under Lessig's modalities, you cannot exist by yourself. You are in a country with other human beings. So there has to be a way that things have to be done, and things have to be done. It can't be a Wild West, essentially. That's what I'm getting at. So there has to be regulation. But the people in charge of regulation are not taking time to understand regulation in a modern way. If you're saying, for instance, crypto is accelerating money laundering or financial crimes, there has been money laundering and financial crimes before crypto, So that approach is not valid at all. So people have to do their own research. As lawyers, you have to be on the ball and educate yourself every day. I spend at least 10 hours studying blockchain every day.
Wow.
Right. So you have to understand blockchain thoroughly, and you have to invest time in understanding blockchain. So like I'm a student, in terms of understanding blockchain. I think everybody is, because it's impossible to understand everything about the blockchain platform. It's impossible. You can't be an expert at everything. So you have to sit back, you have to read. What are people saying out there? What's the community saying out there, So there's a lot of work to be done, because the protocols, they keep updating, new things, new features keep coming up. You have Web3 coming up. You have countries like El Salvador taking up Bitcoin as legal tender. So Bitcoin as money is now also on the table. So how do institutions like the IMF, how do they respond to such things? So like there's a lot going on, I won't lie to you. So you just have to do your own research and understand this thing. It's huge, it's a monster.
Brian, I've got a question that's been bothering me, and you're probably the best person to ask. It's not so much blockchain, but it's slightly more towards crypto, and obviously they are linked together. Currently, the way crypto, more specifically Bitcoin, is created is through running an algorithm of almost like deconstructing a picture, putting it back together, and then it sort of creates a Bitcoin once that's done. Is there any laws around actually creating Bitcoin and cryptos? Because obviously with something like cash, it's how much gold is physically in the Bank of England. That's how much cash is allowed in the country. And then the same with Fort Knox in the US. What's sort of happening around the law of the amount of crypto that can be created and on the market?
Right. So I'll use the Bitcoin example, okay? Because that's clearly stated out. So Bitcoin has a limited supply. I think it's around 21 million Bitcoins, okay? There's a limited supply.
Yeah.
So there's a way, there's a formula. I think after this interview, I'll send you some notes on that, and you could probably do a voiceover explaining that formula, because I don't have it in front of me right now. But it has a limited supply, and there's the level of difficulty and whatever is readjusted every so often, you know. So the Bitcoin protocol itself has its own rules and governance. That's why I was saying blockchain governance is there. And if people don't agree with some of the rules that happen there, then you have something called a fork, like FORK. Some users might decide to divert from the main protocol, you know. So it's a bit technical. I'm really trying to simplify it, but I think the best thing we could do is probably have the notes in front and before me, or I'll send them to you, and we can educate the listener from a very informed point of view. And
yeah, certainly.
Yeah, and just to add on something, Bitcoin derives its value from utility. So people ask, crypto is not backed by gold, is not backed by, you know, it's not like cash, you know, liquid cash like the pound or whatever. And it's no longer backed by the gold standard after the Bretton Woods summit. I'll call it a summit for now, but after the Bretton Woods, it's no longer backed by the gold standard. But crypto, it gains its value through utility. And in things like Bitcoin, its limited supply is what gives it its value.
Well, Brian, yeah. I could talk to you for hours about blockchain and how it's going to change the world and the law around it. I mean, it sounds like you're in for a long ride with the law and trying to create legislation. But thank you so much for taking the time to come on and have a chat with us. It's been really interesting.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm always here to help. So whenever awesome. You need some. Yeah, I'm always.
Well, on that note, where can people find you and reach out to you if they had any questions?
Right. So I think the best place to reach me on is on LinkedIn, because that's where you'll find the greater blockchain and crypto community, and that's where I post most of my content, because you get people who are engaging with you intellectually and also in terms of, you know. It's not for entertainment purposes. It's like we're trying to do something, you know, we are trying to bridge the law and computational systems. So LinkedIn is the best place for that. At times Twitter as well, because of spaces, there's some good forums on that. So Brian Sanya Mondoh on LinkedIn, and Brian Sanya Mondoh on Twitter. I'm hardly on Instagram or Facebook because on there's no business. I'm sorry to say. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you again, Brian.
All right. You're welcome.